where do we start? Let's start with the video. Let's start with the video.
Do it.
Obviously, I'm gonna let you explain it, but like, talk about the inspiration for that video.
Yeah, so Seth Rosenthal is actually the guy who makes a lot of these videos. They're rewinds. The channel is Secret Base. I can't recall what their name was before, but they basically do these rewinds on like really popular moments in sports history. I'm a big NBA fan, so after just binge watching probably 20 of those one night, I was like, you know what, I should do one of these for Rocket League. Because it was right before I was starting to kind of get into the esport, and I saw that there wasn't really a lot of content like this. I know there's some historians out there like you who really know this stuff going back, but it seemed like a good part to kind of start and dip my toes into the waters of seeing if I could make Rocket League content that was actually enticing to people.
Yeah, and that's the hard part because like you realize that like Rocket League content, if you've been around enough, you understand that there's either like two. It's like really lazy content that's just like produced and that's it, and they just throw it out there and it's just 15 minutes of gameplay, right? Or you've got like your Sunless Con, right? Your Sunless
Yeah,
Con that's like just over the top, and you watch it and you're like, I'm never gonna be able to do this. I'm never
oh,
gonna be
for
able to
real.
have this. Like, it's not gonna happen. So if I can't make his content, I don't even know why I'm making content. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, because my options are limited, right? Like I can't do gameplay because I'm awful. Like you can do gameplay, till the cows come home, but that's not an option for me. And then was it Sunless Khan who just did that video for SRG? Was that him?
Yes, that was him.
Had the I mean, you just like look at the editing quality and it's like, okay, cool. So
The
clearly there's
B-roll
like
and stuff
levels
like
to
that.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, which I just can't do. So yeah, I'm trying to do the best with the tools that I am equipped with, but I have pretty not great tools. But I'm glad you like the content. That one was I was really proud of that video, and I feel like that's kind of the thing, right? Like I think it's really exciting that people are making content. It seems like there's more people who are starting to produce stuff. Like Buttery Hotness is one of the people who
That's
I'm a
also who
fan
I
of
want to
his
get.
videos.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, he's cool. I haven't talked to him, but
That's how I
we've
found you, by the
talked
way,
via
in his
Twitter.
comment section.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really? Yeah, that's he's making cool stuff too, and I think that's really exciting that more people make content. My objective is to like help grow the esport, like help people be interested in this because I'm super interested in this, and I don't have a lot of like friends who are into it. So I'm trying to like build this thing up so I can have somebody to yell at about why I think the Drees atomic switch was less than ideal. But that's
Me
getting a
too.
little
Me
off
too.
topic.
I'm not a big
Yeah,
fan of
yeah,
it either. No, that isn't
yeah,
giving off topic. Let's go into that. Like, see, I think, yeah, I think a lot of these roster changes didn't didn't do much. I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan. I go on record as saying I'm not a huge fan of picking up veteran players that
mm,
have been dropped off like good teams because like I've seen time and time again through history that with a lot of these players, like the likelihood like that they're gonna come back and be something in the league is like so low. It's like people usually say like don't take a chance on the new guy or whatever when you've got a veteran that plays
yeah.
the game. I feel like it's the opposite with this game. It's like don't take a chance on this guy that we've seen time and time again go down and down and down, and then like you've got people that were season one RLCS that are in like champ now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's an interesting conversation because you kind of have to, at least for me, I have to like think of what's the like prism that I'm looking at this information through, because like for me, like I'm probably going to reference the NBA a lot because that's like historically what I've been into. But you have a five-man roster, like five men playing, and then you have a whole bench too. With Rocket League, you only have three people, and that's basically it. And like I know that there's a conversation you can have about like subs and like the validity of that, but in a general sense, you have three people. So the importance of all of those people is just exponentially higher when you kind of go through and look at things. So I think that every move is a lot more critical and important in this sport than it is in your traditional sports, just
Yep.
because there's so few people that are
You
actually
need
playing, you know?
like you think about like the guy, right? When it comes to like quarterbacks in
Sure.
the NFL, it's like you got that guy that's gonna be able to
Yeah.
get you guys to a championship. Like in Rocket League, yeah, it's like every single guy needs to be that guy.
So
because there's so
important.
little. Yeah.
And in the atomic Drees switcheroo, let's call it, something I think that's important to like mention up top is that I think we as a general community always look at it from just like an X's and O's standpoint, and this is something that I think Rizzo talked about with like that collection of people he just had when he did that podcast with like Reddles and a bunch of different people. But he's all of the players were talking about this idea of like you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Like these are all young dudes, like much younger than me, who are playing this game, and like the I guess vibes, if for lack of a better term, is like so important, and we don't really have a ton of insight into what that is. So you know, maybe for them this switch was really good, but all that we are equipped with is really X's and O's, and from that standpoint, I like the move a lot more for G2 picking up Atomic than Envy getting Drees. But I'm curious what your opinion on it is in like a broad context.
Yeah, well, you think about again, like NBA, NFL teams, like eventually you have to reload, right? You have to
Sure.
realize like it's over and your window's closed. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, I love Turbo. I think he's the GOAT. And I think who's your GOAT? Who's your GOAT before
We
me?
can get into that.
Okay.
I think it's nuanced, but I think I would probably, gun to my head, would probably pick Turbo as well.
Yeah. So like eventually you get to this point where it's like, okay, he was great. He was going to like I'm not gonna say single-handedly because no one really can do that at this point, but like he was gonna get a team really far in, and I think at this point, like betting on that and only that is a slippery slope. So for like Envy, if you're thinking about it like a rebuild move, it makes sense. Like it
Yeah.
makes sense to bring it in because he's gonna be like a legitimate player for the next 3 4 years. Whereas with G2 on the other hand, G2 has like aging players like Chicago and Jane Apps that can only really play elite. Like they can win a championship play for another year, maybe two. So that's stretching it. So to bring in Atomic felt like the best move to win like literally right now. Because I want to
Yourself
see.
as good of a chance in the window that you
Yeah,
have that you can get. Yeah.
yeah, and so for that like, and I want to see Chicago get a championship. I love Chicago, so it's like for that I love the
Or
move.
they were knocking on the door. They're
Yeah.
right there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um.
You know,
Yeah. Rizzo, man.
it is
Sorry.
yeah, it's you hate to see it. But you know, I'm a big fan of basically all six of those players in some descending order of you know, I feel like I'm probably um what direction do I want to go with what I'm trying to say? I feel like the journey I'm on right now is kind of trying to figure out like how we talk about Rocket League and like the play itself because like in this context, for example, when you think Atomic, what do most people say? It's like, oh, he's super mechanical. But like in what like more specifically than that, like how do his mechanics actually like translate to how he fits on a team? And I thought he fit really well with Envy. Like in a vacuum, that roster was really good. It just seemed like they always. My big thing with Envy in that roster is it seemed like they would always pull ahead, but that was never like definitive. Like if you go down 2-0 on NRG, what are your chances of like reverse sweeping? Like,
Yeah.
very low. But if you go down 2-0 in a 5 game series against Envy, there's still a pretty good chance that you will like come back and win that series. Like it's less than 50%, of course. It's
Yeah.
pretty low, but it's high in a general sense. It seemed like that team just kind of like gave away games and like I don't know. And then when you talk about the G2 side of things, I think Drees is just too raw of a talent. Like G2 with Chicago and JNAPS is such like a well-oiled machine. They know exactly what they're doing. You know exactly what the offense is going to look like. Like you know what chances and opportunities they're trying to create. And Drees, if you look like at his rating is just like going up. He's clearly
Yeah. He's
improving.
gonna keep getting better.
He just yeah, it just wasn't at a point where like it worked with that roster. So like I get the change from both sides. And it seemed pretty last minute, but yeah, you know,
Well, Turbo talked about it
setting.
on stream. At
Yeah.
a certain point where he said basically like the people were saying, "Oh, why couldn't you get this player? Why couldn't you get this player?" And essentially, Turbo was like, Oh, the reasons why we couldn't get these players was because these players did not want to come here, like at all.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
we're a tire fire basically.
Um,
Um, and I know what it is. I'll tell you what it is. Because you can see it.
oh, okay.
Webcams are very crucial. Like
I
I watch
agree.
people's webcams more than the game most of the time.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there was this
Anytime they're on, yeah.
there was this moment in the 21 game series between like G2 and Envy for like the finals.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I think Envy's up 3-2 in the series and they lose game 3 or game 6. So it's tied 3-3. And you watch Mist just do this, just put his head in his hands for like a whole like minute straight. And I was like, that guy's done. That guy's done. He does not want to play. And then he whiffed like 3 balls in like the first minute of the next game. So I think for Mist, it's probably a confidence issue. And then of course Turbo on the other end, it's the exact opposite. It's a confidence issue, but probably not in the. It's probably the exact opposite way. And you actually see that. I have some like a little bit of background like knowledge on a lot of these teams. That's what you see a lot of is someone that's really unsure about themselves and they're very like timid in the comms and things like that. And then you see someone else that's like, I'm so mad that we're losing right now. And that mixed together is just so bad. It destroys it destroys that team. So like I don't think Envy with Atomic and Mist were ever gonna win. And now I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, man, I don't think Envy with Mist and Turbo is gonna win. Like a combination of those two players either.
Which is a bummer because I know that we want to get to the GOAT conversation, which that in of itself is very nuanced. But like a couple things to go off of that, it's a similar thing that I like start to worry about just touching on like BDS, like what just happened to them in Europe, like getting outscored 21-2 to lose a tournament in like 2 straight rounds. Like some of that is probably just tilt. And like I know that they started trolling at the end
That's so
of the
stupid.
Dignitas
It's so
series,
stupid.
but like it's kind of a similar thing there. And I guess the other part of it, and this might transition into Turbo if you want to go that way, is like is he like the leader on the team? He's obviously the oldest, he's obviously the most like seasoned and veteran, but I don't have any insider knowledge into whether he is or isn't like that voice for them, like that calming factor, you know, like you look at FaZe at LAN.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's not like it's not so much again, there's like different kind of leaders, right? Like in the
Sure,
NBA,
sure.
there's different kind of leaders. I don't think he's one of those guys that's like vocal and starts like yelling or like he's doing the most comms or anything. But
Yeah,
it's more like I've talked about this before. I really want to see Turbo be on a coaching role for a team because he's so competitive. It'd be like if Michael Jordan was a head coach for a team, where at a
yeah,
certain
yeah.
point he would get so upset that he'd say like something like, "Don't even go out there. I'm gonna go out there." You know what I mean? I'm shooting up. I'm
Turbo
shooting up.
subs in,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly, exactly. Like Turbo's that kind of guy where it's like, I want to get in there and win, and that's it. So like that kind of competitiveness and backed by the fact that he's won so much, I think yeah, you have to say that he's the leader because of how much like he wants it and how much he's already done it. It's like people know that he can do it.
Yeah, because it's a conversation that happens in the NBA too. Like the Boston Celtics, like is Jason Tatum like the vocal leader of the team? And it's similar here in the RLCS, where like the biggest differentiating factor I think is like age. Like part of you wants to be like Mist is obviously the best player on this team, he should step up and be more of a vocal leader, but like also maybe that's just not his deal. Like I don't want to put anything on Mist because I don't have any understanding of the situation, but like that's the thing that is like odd, where it's like should he step up just because Turbo like is the most veteran player? Like this should probably have a louder voice just because he is the player. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. It's like again, if you're the best player, but you're like typical, where he doesn't
Sure.
share anything, and you can tell like he's not that guy. But it's like yeah,
Yeah.
so he's obviously not like a vocal leader, but he might be a leader when it comes to gameplay and how
Just
the
his
game's
presence.
yeah how the game's
Sure.
played. Uh, so yeah, we can get past the Rocket League now. So I don't think you can see behind me, right? You see behind me?
No, I don't have the
Oh, that's
camera
right.
pulled
That's
up.
right. So, I've got hanging up here. I've got all three Jungle albums on vinyl. Uh, and the last one, the latest one that they have, is signed by Jungle, and it's the first ever signed one by them.
No way.
Yeah. So, it's the only gold one. That's what it says on it. It's the only gold one. So, um, getting into
How did
that,
you
like,
come into possession of that?
I think I pre-ordered very, very
Oh
early
yeah,
in the process. Yeah, I think that's what
nice.
happened. I think I just really got lucky and things aligned. Uh, but like, yeah, getting into that, like, what's your hobbies? It seems like music is because of how much you know about these bands. It really feels like you'd probably like a lot of music.
Yeah, I do like a lot of music. I would say that a good way to kind of combine history and interests is this is kind of my third, I guess, industry you could say that I've been like a journalist in or trying to be a journalist in. NBA has kind of been like this ever present thing. Like I've worked in professional sports for a little bit, but the other thing was music. I had a music magazine with my roommate when we were in college, and so I got to go to like a good bit of shows and like meet some cool people through that. So that really kind of like exploded the amount of music I was like into and also just like what I consumed. And yeah, you got some really good stuff. That Jungle album is really really cool. I haven't seen them yet, unfortunately, but I know we are talking briefly about your flow page. Like I saw that Toro y Moi album on there. Who else did you have? I wrote it down. Like some people I was interested in. Oh, that Parcells album, which is just
Just
fantastic.
so good,
Um,
right? Like that's like
they're incredible.
it's literally my top. It's probably it's top three for like 2017 or whatever the year it came out for. Like I really
Yeah.
like that Parcels album a lot.
It's exceptional. It's a very expensive vinyl. I still haven't got my hands on it yet.
Jeez,
Um,
man. Oh my.
yeah,
I didn't
but
know that. I didn't know it was expensive. I could have bought that vinyl
well,
at one point. Yikes.
they only make like a couple of them. I think this is I can't recall specifically, but it's like somewhere in the ballpark of like $75 to get it on like Amazon or
Jeez.
whatever. Where it's just like that's fine, but like also like oh man, but
Yeah.
yeah, even live they sound fantastic. I haven't seen them, but on their YouTube they have like a live performance of that whole album. Tame Impala, of course, is like every indie person's
Hmm.
go-to like
Hmm.
oh what kind of music are you into, it's like a personality basically where you're
Yeah.
like I like Tame Impala, but
Yeah.
they're also that's because they're fantastic, you
What
know.
what's the thing? I obviously am seeing it. What's behind? What's in your wall, man?
It's over here,
That's that LeBron.
the it's a signed LeBron jersey. It's my only cool possession. I actually have a bunch of Jordan stuff in this closet. I have some collectible Jordan stuff and a couple LeBron things too. The goats, as
Yeah.
you would say.
Is
Um,
it old? Like I see that looks like an old like Cavs jersey.
yeah.
So was that when he
So
was Cavs or?
yeah, so it's signed. Apparently, it's like a convoluted story. But my father worked with his cousin, and this is like as short as I can make it. And he basically like found that out, and he like told his cousin that I was a really big fan. So I got a signed jersey. That's from like that. That's really really old. I got that like before high school.
Now the real question
So
is,
that was
were
like,
you a really big fan?
oh yeah, oh
Okay,
yeah.
because I was about to say for
We have the
signed.
same last name. I have several of his jerseys, so we're connected in many ways.
Gotcha.
Um, if we could spin back briefly, because I am interested. I know that we have the same answer, but do you want to touch briefly on the GOAT conversation for Rocket League?
Yeah. I mean, Turbo's it. It's championship. Well, okay. Here's the interesting part, right? Here's
Yeah,
the really interesting part. I've talked about this briefly because I tweeted it at one
yeah.
point. Turbo Polza in 2 or 3 years will 100% be considered like in the exact same way as like Bill Russell. Makes sense?
Okay.
It's
Yeah, it
literally the
does
same
make
thing.
sense.
That
Yeah,
is
yeah.
exactly he's Bill Russell. So it's like it's a hard yeah. The GOAT conversation in 2 3 years from now probably will not be Turbo. And I'm very open to like change. I'm super like, oh, whoever's coming down the line, like they're probably better just because the game evolves at the end of the day. So like will we ever see dominance like Turbo? I kinda doubt it because of how close everything's getting. but and how many like
Yeah.
superstars there is, and
Sure.
how much the scene's opening up. But like Turbo's Bill Russell, I think Justin. Actually have it written down what I think every single player is. I think you'll find this amusing, and you can
Yeah,
start
I
talking
have
about
the
your goat
same thing, I
conversation.
think. No, no, please.
No. Like I'm gonna go look through it. I'm
Oh,
gonna go
okay.
look for it, and you
Cool.
yeah.
So obviously, if we're going to do NBA comparisons, I also wrote Bill Russell's name next to Turbo. I think that's really funny. And then Garrett G has to be not Hakeem Olajuwon, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, because he just statistically is basically the leader of every category ever. Like if you go on Octane and you filter by like all events all time, Garrett is basically the leader in like every statistical category, and it's not very close.
Mhm.
So he is just totally racking up stats. There's some people who like you feel like you need to like throw their names into contention just to like be kind. Like
Yeah,
Justin, I feel like has to be in the conversation.
for sure.
Um, I just don't think that he has the accolades. It kind of like what do you value as like the goat?
Yeah.
I think K-Dop is probably, if you're going to have an argument, pretty close to Turbo. Like if I were to have the GOAT conversation and I wasn't allowed to pick Turbo, I think that K-Dop is probably a pretty strong choice. But I don't know if you have a similar second place or if you go somewhere else.
I've got Justin as Steph Curry. I
Oh,
think
very interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
where it's like super mechanical, and you're not seeing anybody like with that kind of mechanics out there. Um,
Changed the game
yeah, change the
overall, changed
game
the meta in a
exactly.
big way.
You
Yeah.
you could even say Squishy is as well. You could
Hmm.
put both of them in the exact same
Certainly
conversation.
could.
And then let me just open it up real quick. Typical's Kawhi. Typical's
Oh, I like
Kawhi.
that a lot.
AJ's Kyrie, basically a watered down Steph, where it's like he's good. They're very similar, and like with those handles and stuff like that, where it's like he's got the mechanics. It's just I wouldn't put him in just in category yet. That's the only
Yeah.
thing. And
It's
then
akin to like, oh, sorry.
oh sorry yeah, go on.
I was just gonna say on the Kyrie parallel, it's like similar to like AJ probably has like the best like handles, like
Hmm.
dribbling,
Yeah.
and like the RLCS. So in that way, I agree.
Yeah, but when I think of it, it's just like if Justin's Steph, AJ's got to be
Sure,
like
sure.
Kyrie or something,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah,
Turbo's Bill Russell, obviously. K-Dop's
certainly.
Michael Jordan, and I think first killer is
Cool.
LeBron. I think first killer is
Very
LeBron.
interesting.
And then I've got scrub killer is Charles Barkley if Charles Barkley won a ring.
Had one, yeah,
Yeah, right?
for sure.
Like
Yeah.
it's like if Charles Barkley had won a ring or two, like that's scrub. Cause like scrub,
No,
like the mentality and everything's been questioned into like, does he want it? Does he really want it? Conversation like Charles, where it's like a matter of passion and not really a matter of like skill.
I think historically, Scrub's biggest, like when we look back at this, like let's say the RLCS in like 6 years, because it's so much still in its infancy, which is like super fascinating about the RLCS. But when we look at Scrub, he was basically the first like like high school or college prospect who was like coming into the NBA. He was the first like young person who everyone was just like waiting until he was old enough. And now we basically see that across the board.
Yeah,
Like basically all of Team Liquid, Daniel, Aqua, you know, all these
Team
new
Liquid's
guys
gonna be
coming in.
crazy.
It's interesting. I feel like I have no insight into what that team will look like. I know they have so much like talent, but I really haven't watched a lot of them. So I
I
don't know
don't
if you
need
have
to. I don't
insight
even
on
need to
like,
watch, bro. I just know. I
yeah,
just know you can't have two players like that because they've been talked about like in the they're the EU's Daniel, but they've got two of them basically. That's
two of them.
essentially how it works. So that
Yeah.
team's gonna be insane. They may not figure it out together because of how much youth is on that team, but I definitely think like even if you just split them up, they're all gonna be top 18 players for sure.
Hey, you look at Queso.
Hmm.
Queso's real young, and they just put it together
Oh yeah, no,
somehow.
and Dignitas too. Dignitas too.
Oh man. Oh, Dig.
Yeah.
I that was a really fun video to make. I made one about Dignitas. They're one of those teams where like I'm trying to put out a video a week and there's so many teams that I like want to do and like want to do follow-ups on, but I feel like I'm not allowed to do Dignitas until I do a lot of other teams.
I tell you what,
But
I wanted to make a video on a team, um, Team Shazoo. And if you don't know who Team Shazoo is, go look into
do
that,
not.
cause
Okay.
that's the reason why. That's the reason why is because you don't know who I'm talking about. Yet they have had players like K-Dop and like Metsinoris and people like that on their team, but you got no clue about this team. They're still around. That's what's crazy. This org, this team, whatever you want to call it, is still around. It's been around since like 2015. I would love to go through the history of that team and its results. And
Oh, they had the three rats roster.
I don't
Maxiu and
remember.
Balleriz.
They must
The
have.
current yeah, it says
They
when
go
you
all
look at
around, dude.
former.
They go all around. I know they're mostly EU though.
Wow. Since 2015, this
Yeah,
organization. I never heard of them. That is crazy.
yeah,
It would be an interesting video for sure.
exactly. Last thing is your editing process and things like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's yeah, obviously a work in progress. But I mean, currently, like I just, it's got to be. I wish I knew what other people's editing processes were because I'm sure they're so much more streamlined than mine. Um, I use like iMovie, like I'm using old stuff.
Mhm.
Um, like all of the graphics, like this is probably my most like secret sauce that I'm using. I use canva.com,
Mhm.
of course .com, but Canva,
Yeah.
I bought the premium. It's like it's totally worth it. You can get a bunch of cool graphics and it's easy to do and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, basically what I do is, while I'm watching the event, I kind of am just I solo in on a team that I think is super interesting that I want to talk about. Like the next video coming out is going to be on phase and kind of what the Aleutian typical, like what does that actually translate to and like how does that make phase better? Um, I'm a huge Aleutian fan, but like I think it's
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
anybody would be upset by thinking that is an upgrade to get typical.
Illusion for
Um,
me got better. Like Illusion exceeded all expectations. Like
I agree.
you realize that like feet like Illusion knew what every single one of us knew, which was that if he didn't step up like crazy big, then he was probably gonna get dropped. So like he's playing for like his life basically. Like
Yeah,
he's
and
playing
he
for his
and he
career
showed
and he
up.
stepped up exactly.
Yeah.
And that so I have like no doubts about him moving forward. Like if he was to play on like some like lesser team or something, I would not put any doubts on his ability right now. The real question is, did he get better because he's playing with such good players on his team?
It's a really good question. I mean, I think he contributed so much to that phase roster. Like they certainly they could have done a lot worse than Illusion. I think he's an exceptional
Yeah.
player. I think he unlocks First Killer and AJ in a way that like they hadn't really been able to do before. Like if you look at like Rogue, for example, like First Killer was doing so much heavy lifting and he was set up a lot better on the phase roster a lot of times because of like what Illusion, like how he got him the ball. Um, it's kind of one of those situations where it's like, what's a good comparison? It's like you have some point guard who's exceptional, like Mike Conley, for example. You
Hmm.
love Mike Conley; he's
Yeah.
great on your roster. But if you have the opportunity to get Steph Curry, like, and I'm not saying that typical is
Or
Steph, but like if you yeah,
Lamelo. Yeah.
if you have a chance to upgrade in a pretty substantial way, like do that. You do
Placement
that 10
player.
times out
He's
of
a
10.
placement player. He's
Yeah,
someone where
like
it's like Kirk Cousins. He's Kirk Cousins.
yeah,
Where
yeah,
it's
yeah. There we go.
except if Illusion was on a 5 year deal, that was completely ludicrous, and they had to pay him $1 million to get out of it, and they couldn't.
If you have Kirk Cousins and they're like, "Hey, do you want Josh Allen?" You're like, "Yeah, I kind of do." Like
Oh,
he's
but what are
pretty
you willing
good.
to give us? That's the thing, because of Kirk Cousins' contract. It's like if
Yeah,
Illusion had a ridiculous contract. That's what I was getting at. Like, and you couldn't drop him unless like you gave up a lot. Oh
for
yeah,
sure.
we'll give
Yeah,
you. Oh yeah, we'll give you Garrett G, but obviously First Killer's coming in the package deal. you can,
exactly,
it's like
exactly.
whoa.
Yeah.
Like
But,
um
Yeah, but like basically my process is like I probably do way more research than I should, like in a way that's probably like I could probably produce more videos. But like when I do like the most recent one I did for Archie, I basically watched every single game from every
Oh,
series from
mhm.
like Regional 2, Regional 3 and the LAN, which like obviously you're watching those live, but you I don't like retain a lot of that
No.
just because it's so fast. Um, so, go back and watch all of those, gather all the clips, put the clips in an order that seems fairly cohesive, and then kind of just talk over that is kind of the methodology. Um, it works, but I know that it could certainly be faster, especially once I decide to upgrade from iMovie. But now I kind of know where everything is,
Oh god, yeah,
so
exactly. Yeah.
I'm like hesitant to change.
That's what I am. I use like everyone tells me like, oh god. Like I'll basically every single like my thumbnail creation, my video creation, like all of it is on Adobe Premiere Pro.
Yeah,
Which like but like
I need to get on Premiere.
yeah, it's good, but like you shouldn't be making your thumbnails in it. But I know it too well. I don't know Photoshop, so it's like I'm not gonna
So then you can't change. Yeah,
exactly.
it's
I'm
like
gonna
Turbo's mechanics.
yeah, exactly. It's yeah, and I remember
Knows.
Jorby was telling me he was literally trying to like tell me he's like, dude, you don't understand. Turbo's mechanics have gotten way better. Okay, I was like,
Really have.
I mean they have, but it's just like at the pace they need to be better. Like you need to be getting better than the people that are getting better at it. You know what I mean? You need to be better. You need double better. And it's
Well,
like
I would say I know that you wanted to hop somewhere, but like the thing that I think of when you're talking about
just
like
chat questions.
veterans who
Chat
are
questions, by the way.
oh cool
Yeah.
oh
If you, no,
yeah
no, no. I'm not saying like just if chat if you're listening and you have a question, throw it out there. Anyway, continue. Yeah.
men. I was gonna say when you look at like veterans who are like adjusting their mechanics, I think a good place to start, like a litmus, is like Turbo versus like Fairy Peak, because Fairy Peak obviously knows where to be. Like he is still a great player. He's an RLCS level player, but like when I watch his mechanics, they're so much more rigid than Turbo's. Like for example, if you're transitioning on defense and Fairy Peak has to jump and turn his car up to like get the ball off the backboard. I don't know if this is like making sense, but like he basically double jumps and then like goes up and then like turns his car and then like boosts more. Like
He's
it's
not
just
doing it.
it's
He's
way less
doing
seamless.
yeah. He's doing like one step at a time, and that's it. Like
Yeah,
as in yeah.
exactly.
Instead of like doing it all at the same time. Yeah. K-Dop looks
And
like that too, though. K-Dop looks like that as well, which is a problem. That team buried themselves, man. That's the problem. That team really buried themselves. Alpha 54 can't get them out of that. They need two Alpha 54s to get out of that.
it's it's tough because even I was watching them in the most recent regional, and like the thing that you want them to do, which I know a lot of top teams are like very good at like staying loose. Who's a good example? Dignitas, very loose.
Yeah.
Like when they're winning, they're like, all right, this is going well. Let's like keep it like good momentum, good energy. And then you look at Vitality, who's like stomping teams, and they're just all stone faced. You
Yeah.
would, if you just looked at their like cameras, you would think they were getting like Brazil like 3 games in a
Mhm.
row, but they're like winning. It's very strange. I don't really know where you go with that team. I think replacing Fairy Peak probably makes the most sense in the long
Yeah,
run.
because
Um,
K-Dop offers so much like from content and things like that. It's like you
yeah,
can't because of how much money he's
he's tough to
giving
get
the
rid of.
org. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think well, Team Vitality to sum it up, like Team Vitality is like the Patriots, right? It's like if it's working and you're winning, it's awesome and it's great and everyone loves it. But like the second it starts not working, it's like, dude, what are you guys doing out there? Like
It's a
change it
tough
up.
spot because they have really, really strong copium. If you want to go that route, season
Energy
X
levels of
champions.
copium.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh my
exactly.
god, I didn't know
Like
that. I didn't know anyone rivaled energy in that.
season X champs, they were just there. They probably would have looked really good at Worlds. Fairy Peak has food poisoning on land. So what do you really take from
Um,
those results? Alpha is certainly still a top 10 player. Like if you want to make a case for like why you shouldn't be super worried about that team, it exists, but their floor is just so low. Like don't think any team that is contending for a world spot should ever get like placed 12th through 16th. That's just like not allowable, I think.
Yeah,
So it's a weird spot.
yeah. I just think, and then they've again, not to say that the French player pool is like low, because it's not. There's so many French players, but
Yeah.
because of what they did with Scrub, they've like backed themselves into this whole like, you have to pick up someone that's French. If you're gonna replace your player, you have to pick up someone that's French, because when they dropped Scrub, they made this whole thing where basically they said the reason why we dropped Scrub wasn't because of any like professional reason or anything like that. It was just, or personal reason. It was just that he wasn't French, and we wanted a French roster for communication purposes. So you've kind
Makes
of
sense.
limited yourself in player pool though by saying that. Now if you go out and grab someone that's not that, people are gonna be like, bro, but what about all French? What about all French, bro?
What about yeah? Well, I guess if you're going to limit yourself, you do pretty well to limit yourself to just French players
Yeah,
because they're
yeah,
they're
that's the
pretty
best.
good.
Yeah.
Like, what if Vitality replaces Fairy Peak with Vatira?
What if Vitality
Probably not gonna
replaces
happen.
replaces him with Seiko?
Oh
I
yeah,
think
I mean
Seiko's
that would be
French.
a
Like,
yeah. I was really impressed by a lot of those rosters. Seiko is like such a breath of fresh air. I think it's really cool that basically across like the entire scene, we're seeing all of these brand new players who are like exceptionally good. It makes it very difficult to like talk about who the best players are, because something you can do in Rocket League that you can't do in like traditional professional sports is basically be the best in the world as like a rookie.
yeah.
Like you don't really see that in a lot of other channels,
I'm
but
glad you brought
it
that
seems
up.
pretty common.
I'm glad
Yeah.
you brought that up because I definitely remember you saying, and it's funny because I have. You want to talk about videos where you're like you want to make it perfect and it
Yeah.
never gets released, right? So I have like an entire like 40-minute documentary, and it's like a properly edited and everything of every single rookie in the RLCS, like history wise.
Oh,
And so basically, what I start off with the first couple minutes is basically explaining that, in NFL and NBA, it's because like they're not strong enough usually, right?
sure.
They're not
Body
matured
is not
enough.
ready.
And then also, not to mention that to get those players to play with NBA players and NFL players, those NBA players and stuff, they have to like fly out. They have to make a whole day out of it. You know what I mean? It's harder. It's less convenient to do it as well. Whereas like in Rocket League, these guys can just play these guys regularly, daily in ranked or six mans or whatever. And then also, it's like you're not getting a bigger hitbox because you're older. You know.
Yeah,
Like
you
so,
don't like you're equipped with the same tools that I am.
mhm,
Everybody is equal across the board basically, and like what physically you can accomplish. But like if you look at the top 25, how many of those players are new within the last 3 seasons?
bro,
Like
ton.
pretty healthy amount, I
Yeah,
would say. It's really cool to see. And I think it's interesting for the future of the esport too. Like I don't really want to get into like this part of it unless you are really passionate about the topic. But like it seems very odd to always see these videos of people talking about like, is Rocket League dying? I feel like that's really foolish because I don't think that the esport has ever looked more promising when you talk about like the growth of it and like how we're spreading across regions and all of the new talent that we're seeing. I think that it's in a really good spot, and I that's really enticing. It's one of the reasons that like I started really getting into this. Like it's cool to see a sport like this boom. At such a like a young age, I guess. I don't know how to articulate that better.
yeah. No, we can totally get into that. I remember I had a video about, yeah, it was like, is Rocket League dying basically,
Yeah.
and what I looked at was essentially on the months that they were looking at, uh, like Twitch was dying, like as a platform,
Mm,
like it was going down. And so yeah, to have this whole conversation, what I found out was that essentially, uh, everything was like it wasn't
yeah.
just us. Like I imagine that if we were involved in other scenes, they probably were saying the same thing we are. There's
Sure.
definitely some talk. So I forget, yeah, I forget my certain like statistics on that, but yeah, essentially what I found out was with that, it's just it like content creators were falling off, like as in they weren't uploading as much, so there was less content, less hours being put in, and that's why we have less views and stuff like that. And then also, to mention like I understand the big thing is the Fortnite, right? The all the people that came from Fortnite and then they got like dunked on hard because like they don't know how to play the game and most of them are little kids and like are like this sucks. But I think if you're a content maker, and you care about things like what we're trying to do, you don't really like care that much if young little kids are not involved because chances are that's not your target demographic. So it
Yeah,
doesn't.
I
It
have no
shouldn't
idea how
impact
to talk to them. Way too
exactly.
old for that.
Yeah. And so it's like yeah. So it's like I don't. Obviously with the people that are growing up around it, like as in people that were 16, 17 when Rocket League first hit, like they're now like where we're at, where
Yeah.
now they can appreciate this stuff, and so hopefully you see like a level of success in this because like as they're getting older, they're getting more mature, and they're starting to realize like it's not just about a dopamine high of watching Jazer for 30 minutes try to hit one flip reset or like one freestyle goal on stream, and you're sitting there for 30 minutes trying to watch it and get excited about it.
He's got great hair though, so I will
Yeah,
tune in for that, I guess.
yeah, I like him. Um, what is there anything else? I'm trying to think. Well, about Rocket League dying. You know what's interesting? Twitch numbers. Like at Twitch numbers wise, it was like 1 million people were watching or so. On average around like late 2019. Right now we're sitting at like 2.8. Like it's almost like three times in the last like 2 years.
Yeah, it's also like I think my last thought on it is it's like two different conversations, right? Because like, is Rocket League as a casual game that people pick up, are the numbers lessening there? Perhaps, but that's not really where like I don't care about that as much as esport. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like I'm much more invested in the success of that.
Yeah.
And that seems like it's continuing to grow. So at a certain point, I could kind of care less if like casually the game has less people. But like I think the esport is in a really strong place, which is really exciting.
Yeah. And that's the point. Like casual people that just play the game randomly are not the people that like are gonna watch content for it. Like
Yeah,
at the end of the day, and
sure.
especially not like the content that we're trying to make, where it's like
Yeah,
into the history. No one, they don't care about that. Like they're not invested like that. So yeah, the
it's just
casual
for us. It's
demographic
just
is
for us.
exactly the casual
Yeah,
demographic. Like it doesn't, it's not gonna help me.
yeah.
Basically, yeah.
I
Well,
need to take off
yeah. I
soon,
was
but
gonna
I
say
do want
yeah.
to. Do you have any last topics, or I have a couple more notes I could throw
Yeah,
at you, or I
let's.
don't know if we have chat questions.
No, we do not have chat questions. But I will
Is
say
it
it's went
okay? I
up.
don't.
It's went up. The number has been going up, which is like huge. I'm actually kind
Yeah,
of surprised we got to like 7 at one point. I was like, okay, all right,
that's what we like to see.
that's what we like to see.
Well, I guess my last question, just for you, what are you kind of trying to? I know this answer is probably there's several layers to the proverbial onion, but what is the intention of your content going forward? Because I know that you're in a unique spot where you kind of have your hands in several like baskets because you are like able to. Like for example, I can't do like nobody will tune in to watch me play Rocket League. Like nobody wants to watch like Champ One. Like I have no mechanics. You have the ability to do
That's
that
not
and like
true. John
stream
Sandman.
and
John
oh,
Sandman's been.
well, he can yell really loud and has a nice beard. I don't have that, so I
Oh,
just don't know if the audience is there for me.
gotcha.
Um, but like you can do that. You also know like presently I know a lot about Rocket League, but from a historical standpoint, you have just way more knowledge than I do, I would presume. So you can go that route. You can go RLCS. Like you have so many different like things you can talk about, and you also are tapped into so many mediums. So like Twitch, podcast, YouTube,
Hmm.
Twitter, if you want to extend it. So like,
Yeah.
what does the plan look like as somebody who's getting into this pretty fresh?
Okay, so the plan is,
Due to
um,
me, I guess.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the plan is, and this is gonna hurt to say, is that like the more you look at it, and again, this is coming from a Twitch perspective. This isn't coming from a
Sure.
YouTube perspective. This is coming from a Twitch perspective. Like, the more you look at it, the more you realize that like the amount of people that care about the gameplay coming out and like the mechanics and things like that, because I don't have that. I'm good, but I don't have mechanics like all these other players. Like I'm definitely turbo. Like that's why I like him so much, because
Yeah.
I'm literally that. And so like yeah, whenever you look at it from like that perspective, it it you would think it's way easier, because you're so high level, but like it's like watching Tom Brady dominate. It's boring to watch. And
Yeah.
so you have to make it, you have to try way harder. I find myself having to try way harder to like have a voice and have a personality, because like at the end of the day, and I was talking about it with pro players, because like pro players will check into my stream and be like, the questions that come from pro players is like, how are how do you stream for so long? How do you do this? How do you do that? It's like they acknowledge that like, wow, what you're doing is like kind of
Sure.
different than what we're all doing. And so for me, I do want to play Rocket League. I'd love Rocket League to be like my like making me my money every month. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's about making content. It's about spreading knowledge. It's about making people like you and not the gameplay or like what you're doing, but just like liking you doing anything. And that's where I come from. Is like I want when I stream, I want people to walk away from that thinking that guy was cool, and not like he hit a nutty shot, that was crazy, clip it. Like
Yeah.
and so yeah, that's like a big, and it doesn't look, I'm gonna be honest, it doesn't help you grow like as fast as you probably could doing something like that, because that's different, right? Like that's different.
Yeah.
People don't see that. So it's like kind of weird to just sort of randomly see that, because that's really, I can't think of some. I really can't think of many. Like I really can't think. I can think of like Rizzo does that. Sizz probably does that. I don't watch Sizz. Sizz probably does that. But like yeah, there is not a lot, and obviously the ones that are like they're professional, and I'm not.
Yeah.
So it's a different dynamic. But no, for me, I want to be making content when I'm 40. I preferably what we're doing right now is what I would prefer to do content as when I'm 40. But like yeah, the idea is, yeah, I know I'm good at Rocket League and everything, and I know that like this can get me that core audience of people that care about like me, and then I can go take that and do something else with it. If it's history videos on Rocket League, or it's like podcast about sports and music and TV and stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
yeah,
You're the Tim Duncan of Rocket League.
master
Very,
of
very
none.
impressive. Very skilled. No mechanics though.
Yeah,
Nobody's tuning in to be like, did you see that crazy windmill dunk from Tim Duncan?
exactly.
But
Yeah,
he's
exactly.
putting up
I got that
a double
backboard
double
shot
every
like
night.
crazy.
Exactly. Yeah, it's unbeatable. You know.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, no, that's really interesting. Like I've been following your content, and like it's really like appealing, and I see that you're tapping into so many markets and like opportunities, which is super cool. I'm still trying to figure out what that is. Like obviously, like the idea of streaming is very interesting, but I feel like I have this imposter syndrome where like the avenue that I would be getting into this would basically be like, I guess analysis. I don't really know. I don't really know if I have a specialty yet.
No,
But then
there's
like
people like that. There's people like that.
the people in that space know way more than I do. Like nobody's gonna tune into my stream if like Gregan is streaming. You know what I mean? Also because I'm not gonna stream when he is, because I watch all of his streams.
Mhm.
But like I don't know. I feel like I need to have more wherewithal and like understanding of like what I'm talking about before I can tap into stuff like that. So at this point, video once a week, that's kind of that's the move.
Yeah, I think though, I will say there is something that I have never seen that we've done right now, is the comparison to things people understand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like, I think that's something because of how much sports and stuff like that we understand. to where like you can make something make sense to somebody that doesn't really have that much. So like like what we're talking about, like that casual market of people that they don't know about the history, so you can tell them like, dude, Seiko's amazing because he hits the backboard reads and he hits no. Seiko plays like blank. And then it's like, oh, okay, I know what that means. Like we did that several times here, and that's I don't think you see that from anybody. Like
It's true. Maybe that's something I should tap into more. I'm just
no, I
always
think you
cognizant
should. I
of,
think you should.
yeah,
Absolutely.
I don't know how many. I could probably
Because then
fit
that's both
80 NBA
markets, right?
references into a video. Yeah, I just don't know how big the on the Venn diagram. I don't know how big the middle is between like interested in RLCS and interested in NBA
There's a
is.
big diagram actually. A lot of because again, like the community grows up, right?
Yeah.
And like I've seen kids in the community like are getting invested into sports on Twitter and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
so like yeah, I think there is because like Oath and like Gear, I don't know, you know, these people, but
Yeah.
like they talk about yeah, they talk about sports like randomly here and there, which I had, you know, 2-3 years ago, absolutely not. I don't think they were ever really talk I take that back. When I met Gear, like in real life, we talked about what did we talk about? Golden State Warriors, because that was prevalent. That was super prevalent. Like this would have been 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah, this was like Warriors super reign over the NBA, where I didn't want to watch anything because I knew the result.
Dynasty. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well,
no, I
maybe
think
that's the
I think there's a
avenue.
market. Or something
I
again. I think
think
something super weird, bro. Like Team Shazoo, where it's like nobody's making a freaking story on Team Shazoo. Like I'm sorry, like
for
nobody's
real.
doing that. So like maybe that's where you go. Because again, like you're competing against all of these other analysts that know so much about all these like good teams, but it's like ask them about Team Shazoo. They probably don't know.
Don't
It's
know
like
anything.
boom.
Yeah. Come
Yeah.
on, guys. Get up.
Come
Yeah.
on.
But
Team Shazoo's
yeah, I know
dynasty.
about Shazoo, man.
Come on. But yeah, that might be really where I think I could see it because it's
That
like
might be the move.
yeah, random stories that just like nobody has like ever done. I mean that's technically what I do. That's what I want to do. It's like your story, right? Like I don't think you know how many viewers of mine or anything like that is gonna know. It's because of how different our markets are, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
for sure.
so yeah, my plan is with this podcast is to bring on like players that haven't played in like 2 or 3 years that were like big like 5 years ago, 6 years ago,
Oh,
that
that's cool.
haven't tweeted in like 2 years or whatever. Like that's the plan, like ghosts basically. That, like
Where
people,
have you been?
yeah, where have you been? Exactly, it writes
Yeah.
itself. Think about it. It writes itself. Like number one, where have you been? What do you do? Things like that, and like outside of Rocket League, and then also looking back on Rocket League, like what was the best moments? Writes
A
itself.
career retrospective. Yeah, that's
Exactly.
really cool.
Yeah. So that's what I plan on doing with this thing. I got Jacob on next week or so. So
Shirtless?
hmm?
Is he gonna be shirtless?
Dude, I freaking hope he is. Bro, that'd be awesome. Bro, I definitely need to tell him to do that. Like
One
as
of the
in
most
like
iconic clips ever.
yeah, like kind of like this. Yeah, you can't see it, but kind of like where you're at, where it's like I just see shoulders, but like you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what
no.
this is a crop top actually. It's
Yeah. Oh yeah,
just
you can see everything.
nothing from here down. It's
Yeah.
just this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well,
All
hey,
right.
I really appreciate you having me on. This was really exciting. You are actually the first person I've connected with outside of just typing at somebody
Mm.
within Rocket League. So I appreciate you reaching out and setting this up. This is a good time.
Yeah, for sure. You gotta get I gotta get buttery hotness. And
Dude, if you
like
do, I want to talk to that guy so bad. I'm such a
yeah.
big fan of
Oh,
his.
so
Like,
I low key wouldn't mind like a scenario where like me, you, him, and like a fourth, and I'm trying to come up with who the fourth would be right now. Doing like an actual like weekly podcast kind of type beat. That
whatever,
would be
man. If I can talk to Buttery Hotness, I don't want him to be if he like hears this or like I always comment on his videos. I hope he doesn't think that I'm like being disingenuous or weird, but like I
Oh no,
really enjoy
you're a
his
stalker,
content.
bro.
You know what I mean? Yeah. No, but I really enjoy his stuff, and also like it's cool that in a weird way he kind of holds me accountable for making videos, because he had said like I'm gonna make videos once a week, and it was at a point where I was kind of making like a video a month, and I was like, you know what, I can do this once a week.
Yeah.
So like he's holding me accountable from a distance. He doesn't know he is, but I appreciate him a lot.
You see other people's grind, it motivates.
Exactly. Exactly.
Definitely.
I'm trying to get to Lawler one day. He puts out like 17 videos a day. I'm like, Jesus, dude,
Yeah,
come on.
man's crazy, dude. Man's
Yeah.
insane. It's, like I look at it and I'm like, it's not even that hard. It's just like the fact that he can come up with, you know, things to talk about and for like 10 minutes every single day. Like,
Both get there. We'll get there eventually.
yeah, we'll get there. All right, well, it's been
Oh,
fun, man.
man.
Yeah.
I appreciate you having me on. Phase video coming out soon. I don't know if you guys have heard of Phase before, but they're a pretty
Who?
popular Rocket League team.
Uh,
Yeah, Phase. They're mostly like a Call of Duty thing, I
oh,
think.
yeah, the
But
shoot game. Yeah, I've heard. I've seen about
exactly.
that.
Yeah. The gun grenade game. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen
But
that.
something coming out on them. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I gotta sprint to work, and it's raining, so hopefully that's okay.
I
But
know. I was seeing the time and I'm like, bro, oh god. I mean,
no,
everybody
it's
knows.
all good. I got some time.
Yeah.
I got some time. But
Right.
thanks again, man. I'll talk to
Yep.
you. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah. See you, man. Appreciate it.
Take it easy.
Yep. Bye. All right. All right. That went incredibly well, I'd say. That was way better than I thought it would go. That guy's articulate, man. That guy does not that guy talks better than me. I'm gonna just say that. That guy talks better than me. He says less likes and less us than I do. That's impressive. Bro, oh my god, puts me kind of to shame. Sheesh. Anyway, yeah, that was fun. I gotta get to uploading it to YouTube in its entirety, but I gotta find a good thumbnail because I needed to get some clicks because that was nice, bro. I'm glad we got that. I'm really glad we got that actually. That was awesome. That is probably one of the best. I would say that's probably one of the best conversations I've ever had. Like hour long conversation. That's probably one of the best I've ever had when it